Testing, and welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. Check us out if you get some time, DeltaCX.com. And welcome to another Think Out Loud episode. I hope I'm numbering them correctly. I'll fix it later if I'm not. Hello, Solomon. This is episode 12 of the Think Out Loud series, not to be confused with the numbered episodes that are the live podcast playlist series. So today we got a submission, and it came from our friend Steph. And we did get another submission, and we're going to do yours next week. Yes. So the other one that we got, we didn't forget you. You are on hold because Steph's is shorter. It's only going to be today. Hi, Festus. So let's just jump right. Oh, before we jump right in, of course, we want to thank all the good peeps who are donating to the channel at all levels. We've got junior, mid-level, and senior low ego action heroes here on the YouTube channel, where you can click join for the membership, and that gives I think it costs $3 to $10 a month, and I think I get half of that. YouTube keeps the rest, or I don't remember now. But anyway, I use that to reinvest in the channel and buy delicious chocolate chips. So thanks to everybody who is helping to support the channel. Totally optional since I do have a day job, but always appreciated. Hello, Kayla and Bipradeep. I hope I got that halfway right. Hello, smiley face from Steph. All right, so let's turn off these comments. Let's flip over to Acture, and we'll talk about what today's thing is. And of course, since Steph sent it in and she's here, she can always add some color. Let's just check. Okay, good. So you've got me, the optional tip jar, the chat room, and a giant Acture screen. And if you want to see this later, you'll be able to find the file at FF, two F's like Frank, 2728.axshare, AXSHARE.com. So when I'm all done, I will load this up and you'll be able to find this there. So what came in said, the target audience is European English-speaking people with a job who need to prepare quick meals for lunch or dinner. Okay, that sounds like about half of Europe, maybe more. Hi, Charlene. How you feeling? And the problems or pain points we would be addressing would be, most cooking recipe sites have super complex recipes. There's always tons of ingredients no one has at home. There's 140 ads and a bunch of crap about how that person first discovered the dish and how it reminds them of their childhood. Most people who work don't have time for that, nor do they have time to go hunt for 150 ingredients they might use once. How can we build a cooking site? Ooh, it's a how might we. Ouch, ouch. How can we build a cooking site that delivers a fast, good experience that is not frustrating with tons of bloat around the dishes? And of course, this was fake. So since this is fake, based on this Steph's frustration, she would say people don't want to buy 150 ingredients that they might only use once. I know how you feel. I bought horseradish thinking I was going to do a lot with it, and it is just sitting around. People who don't want to waste too much time in super long recipes unless they can cook something the weekend and reheat it. So that's a little bit more of an American style of cooking, to cook for days and fridge or freeze it and warm it up over time. Not so much a European thing. People don't want to spend too much money on each meal. They might favor ingredients that they can easily plan to use in multiple recipes. Okay, so before we jump in on how we would plan generative research for this, since that's all we're doing together today, so if you're watching live, jump in with your comments and your questions. Since this is Think Out Loud, I'll be thinking out loud, and I hope you will be too. Now, the first thing that really jumped out at me when I saw this was about how many recipe websites have a lot of ads, a bunch of crap, the pages are incredibly long and usually awful on mobile, and there's a lot of storytelling in there, like, I remember the first time I tried this food, and so Steph's totally right. But if you're like me and you're thinking about business success and business metrics and business KPIs, then you've probably figured out, because we use our critical thinking here, that these sites have as a key KPI your time spent on a page. Either it's because of the number of ads they can show to you, that they want you to scroll through lots and lots of content and therefore see more ads, or they might be selling to sponsors, hey, I have people spending X amount of time on my site each month. And of course, that time is lengthened because we're all desperately just trying to find the recipe here. Kayleen says, all recipes has tried to search by ingredient, but I found it difficult to use because of repetitive user-submitted recipes. Good point. Hi, Janice. So, first of all, we would have to imagine that if this really is going to be that streamlined and not ad-based, then this is probably paid. We're going to need some sort of business model. Either we're selling sponsorships like, this podcast is brought to you by whatever, or we are running ads, or we are selling merch if we're super famous, or blah, blah, blah. Steph says, yep, and you can't put a copyright on a list of ingredients, so you need fluff around it so that it becomes original content other people won't reuse for SEO. Yeah, good point there too. So everybody has to take the same old macaroni and cheese recipe and make it their own by telling macaroni-related stories. Sorry, I'm getting a little sniffly. I think we're slowly moving into spring here, and I should probably start taking some allergy medicine. Kayleen said, the thing is, though, I just scroll down to the recipe with mouse center click. Takes 1 second. Yeah, me too. I am just scrolling until I see a box with ingredients in it. Hey, Ray. So we're going to need some sort of business model. But again, this is generative research. So in generative research, we kind of don't care what the business model is. We're going to let the strategists fight that out later. We just want to learn more about our target audience and see what we can build for them that's going to be different and better than whatever they're using now. Because we have to remember that people might be looking, a lot of these websites are bloggers, vloggers, YouTubers, and that's why they have that format. And then, of course, there's also all recipes and recipe websites. There's also diet plans. Weight Watchers will have their own websites with their own recipes, have their own app. There might be diet-related apps. MyFitnessPal, Carb Manager. My friend uses Fat Secret, which she thought was a terrible name, but there you go. And of course, none of these are sponsored. I'm just naming things I've heard of. Nobody is a sponsor here on today's show. That's how we do it here. So, there's lots of different things people might use for different reasons. Obviously, speaking personally, selfishly, though, of course, I am not the user, I do use a lot of YouTube for recipes. And luckily, I follow some YouTubers who I think get to the point pretty well. They don't do a lot of storytelling. They're not going for extra long videos. A lot of their videos are 6 minutes. So I've been pretty picky about who I follow on YouTube. When I look for a recipe and it's 20 minutes long, forget it. I'm looking for the 6-minute one. So I definitely feel the target audience here, even if I am not the user. So let's take a look at how we would plan research, because we work at some sort of company, pretend, and we are thinking about building a website, mobile web app, whatever, smartwatch system that will accomplish this. Hello, Ale. I hope I pronounced your name okay. Okay, so let's think about our generative research plan. Now, I like to start with who we want to meet, and kind of, I often go back and forth between who I want to meet and why I want to do this, and I just kind of ping pong back and forth for really no good reason, but this is think out loud. So, so who do we want to meet? Well, we know that they are European English speakers. So obviously we would be running a screener survey for that. We wouldn't want non-Europeans. We wouldn't want non-English speakers. For whatever reason, we've decided that's the target audience. So we want European English speakers, varied genders and ages. They would probably, we do want people with accessibility needs. They cook and eat too, everybody. We would probably want, the original thing said people with jobs, right? We can look back at this, people with jobs who need to prepare quick meals. Okay, so these are, so we're going to look for people with full-time jobs who find it hard to find time to cook meals, might prefer quick meals. Okay, so I'm going to screen for these people only because it's what the original thing said. Now, of course, sometimes we have to use our critical thinking and say, well, the client or my boss or the stakeholder asked for that, but I'm not really sure that's who we want. In fact, I had that conversation earlier today. Who sales and marketing see as our target audience is not necessarily who we in CX or UX would see, because we're looking to group people more by behaviors or decisions rather than demographics or company size or things like that. So like hi Manuel. So for example, like, I don't care what people's jobs are. I don't care if they work in tech. I don't care if they work in a factory. Doesn't matter. They're busy people who have a hard time making time to shop or cook. Niku says, hi, Debbie. Great session. Research is my favorite topic. Great. We'll do as much of it as we can each week. I think next week's has some research as well, and then possibly some design. Anybody can think of anything else we would want to screen in or screen out for our research project, because we haven't really identified segments here. We have to maybe think, I think what we can do, and we did this when we did our fake research. Those of you who have been to the micro lessons playlist know that I did a series of fake research stuff. A lot of the videos will say fake research. The research was real-ish, but the project was fake. We did it just for the purposes of the channel. And we did how people are shopping and cooking in the pandemic. So in a sense, we've kind of done this, but this is a twist. So we might want to take a look maybe at household. Are people cooking for themselves? Are they cooking for a couple or two people, maybe a roommate or a sibling? Are they cooking for a larger family? So maybe that could be one way to group people into segments. So let's see, how do we want our segments? Our segments could be by household composition. Our segments could be by effort. And I'm saying that because sometimes I find that, sure, there are quick meals, but we might find that some people are okay with a medium quick meal if it means it's going to be more tasty, different from last time, better nutritionally. So we might find that there's levels of effort. There's people who wish that they could just put something in the microwave and go, and then there might be people willing to put in more effort. So this one's hard for me to decide because it's a little bit of a fake project, but if this were real, I would be working with my team on how do we think we want to break these up? Could it be by household and how many people they're cooking for? Could it be by how much effort they're willing to put in to shopping and cooking? Steph says, or there might be leftovers for another day. Yeah, so maybe all in all, these two together might roughly equal, I don't know where my roughly equal sign is, but we'll use that, might roughly equal how many portions do you want to make? And again, we kind of already did this. I feel like we did this when we did the fake research last year, because we talked about creating a system that would help people shop and know how much of something to buy based on how many portions they were going to make. So again, this feels like a little bit of a repeat, but it also feels fresh. So let's see, how many people do we think we want to meet? Because sometimes I break groups into low, medium, and high, like single household, couple, larger family, low effort, medium effort, high effort. I'm just going to imagine that we might have 3 segments. So we might imagine that 3 times 8 is 24. We don't have to imagine it, it's real. 3 times 12 is 36. So yeah, we might want kind of 25 to 30 people let's say at least 25 in this case. Hi, Alex. How have you been? Anything new? Have you put anything to use from the workshop? I want to know. So these are some of the things that I would do. Probably want to meet with at least 25. Make sure I'm seeing patterns and themes. If you're not seeing patterns and themes, you either didn't find the right people or ask the right questions. And so you might need to try again. So let's think about some of our research goals. We want to learn more about, let's say, household composition, and which again might be in the screener survey. So maybe we don't need it here. It's not really a research goal. Research goal, we want to learn maybe how often people, sometimes these how often's I don't love, because I feel like, well, what can I do about that? Because whether somebody cooks once a week or 14 times a week, we want them to come to our website or app and use whatever it is. So, do we really need a how often? So let's see, let's at least jump on the things we absolutely know that we want to learn. So we definitely want to learn how, this is a how often. I think I do want to learn, how often are you cooking fresh meals versus reheating leftovers, getting carry out, microwave convenience food, someone else cooks for you, you live with your mom, I don't know. So how often are you cooking a fresh meal, say in a week? And again, that wouldn't necessarily change how I design something, but it can help us learn more about our audience and some of their behaviors and preferences. Take me, and again, I'm not the user, but we have one restaurant within walking distance, and we almost never eat there because it's really nice and a little expensive. I cook almost every meal I eat every day. So, and Italy generally doesn't have convenience food. And so my habits and my needs as a frequent fresh food cooker, or the like, might be different than someone who says, yeah, once in a while I'm looking for an interesting recipe. So I'm thinking that this could be interesting. What do you all think? Do you think this would help us understand behaviors? It might not help us design, but it could help us understand behaviors. What else do we want to learn? Okay, ingredients. Let's see. How often, and again, it's a how often question, which I don't love, but or you can say, tell me about a time when, how often people are cooking, how often people are experimenting with unique ingredients, and maybe how that went. Like me, I bought horseradish, and I'll probably never buy it again because that didn't go so well. Because Stephanie was talking about people don't want to have to find a whole bunch of ingredients that they might use only once. Like I am still using the sumac that I bought 5 years ago. Steph says, if the goal is to sell subscriptions to avoid ads, I think how often could help. Casual cookers might not be willing to subscribe. Okay, that's a great point. So now this ties back to our business model, where even though we're not going to do any research around the business model, we're not going to ask people, if this were a monthly subscription service, would you pay for it? No, that's not good research. But even though we're not necessarily going to get involved in the business model, we can still ask some questions that might help us strategize a business model. That would be really good research. So yeah. Hey, Larry, do you typically start with a recipe and then find the ingredients, or do you have ingredients you want to use and then find a recipe that uses them? That is great. That's going to go in the good questions bucket over here. I'm going to copy and paste. Stephanie says, yes. Let's copy paste that as a good question, even though it wouldn't necessarily be my first question. So remember, the good questions here are not necessarily in the order in which I would ask them. I'm just going to add them as we think of them so that we have them here and we could always clean them up later. Here's a question. Thinking about, now again, I'm bouncing around a lot, but I'm a bit of a non-linear thinker. Do we want to observe something? Or is this just going to be an interview? Or do we want to ask people to do something? Now, when we did this last year, we asked people to cook a meal and we watched them. So cooking a meal is hard because people then have to be prepared for it and you're watching them, and sometimes it could be something. Now if it's a quick meal, of course, then that's relatively easy, but are we going to learn something from the cooking itself, or is this more about some of the recipe and ingredient selection and prep? Claudia says, how about special diets or diet restrictions? Absolutely, Claudia. That's a great point. People's diet restrictions or, let's say preferences, allergies, and sensitivities. Yes, good one. Larry says, this can be asked about the shopping list too. Do you have a common list that you want to find recipes for and you plan your recipes and create a shopping list for them? Okay, so kind of which comes first, shopping list or recipes, right? A shopping list or shopping list, recipe. Yeah, okay. So good questions. Let's see. So whether they start from ingredients they have or from recipes or a shopping list or something else. Who knows? Leave it open. Always remember to include your something else. Leave it open. So we could ask a similar question that Larry asked before, which is, do you typically start with a recipe and then, let's say, make a shopping list, or do you start with a shopping list and find matching recipes or something else? Just going to leave that there. Don't want anyone to feel locked into a false choice. So these questions are not all framed fantastically. We don't want to accidentally lock people into a false choice of do you do this or that. I'm going to leave it here for now, but later on I would take another pass at these questions and I would rewrite them so that they're a little bit more open and that they don't accidentally narrow somebody into the false choice of do you do this or do you do that, when it could be neither, both, a combination, something else. So these, I've put them on the good questions list, but they still need a rewrite. Larry says, we can add, are there a set of recipes that can use up my foods so I don't waste orphaned ingredients instead of shopping for a recipe, or can we shop to use up our food? Lee says, how about those who cook by time frame? Say I have 30 minutes to make a meal. You start with the recipes, you find you need alternatives, and then you've got no time. Okay, so that's a good question. So maybe the mental model around what is a quick meal? Is this about time the meal will take to cook? Is this about ingredients, something else? Stephanie says, where do you usually look or start looking for recipes? So that seems a little leading because it implies that we know they use recipes. So I think we have to start a step back, which would be asking, we can ask, do you use recipes when you are cooking quick meals? Do you use recipes for cooking quick weekday meals. I'll say weekday because the original thing was about work. Well, actually, not everybody works on the weekdays. So when you cook meals, and then some follow-ups might be, like Stephanie said, let's see, do you have favorite sites, blogs, YouTubers, social influencers? All right. Another follow-up question could be, where do you look for recipes? I always like to ask things around trust or perception. How do you know that a recipe is the one you want to try? So this gives me a little bit of a look into people's decision making around the recipe, and that might be an interesting angle here. Niku says, this sounds a bit closed-ended, but a question could be, does having a balanced diet matter to you in your shopping decisions? If so, how do you curate a balanced shopping list? Yeah, that's a little bit cat's urinary tract, as I say. That's where, everybody's going to want to say yes, even if it's not true, even if they live on Cheetos or Fonzies or whatever they're called over there. What are they called over there? Oh, I forgot. Niku. Cheesy Puffs in Canada. I forgot. Anyway, I don't want to ask people that. I would probably ask maybe more about any diets or special diets that they're following. And again, these are out of order and they need another pass, but we would definitely want to ask, are you following any special diets or diet plans? Oh yes, Stephanie says maybe they use a cookbook. That's true. People still, two of the YouTubers I follow one just came out with a cookbook and another one's about to publish one. So cookbooks are still a thing. Have you purchased a cookbook in the last, let's say, 2 years? But again, we might change that later if we think the period of time matters or doesn't matter. 2 years is still pandemic. So if we wanted to include pre-pandemic behavior, then we have to think about the time frame. Ray says, maybe, where do you find out about the quick meals you currently make? Okay, so that's good. Are you cooking quick meals nowadays? If so, where did you find those recipes or how did you create those meals? I know what I'm going for there, but I might have to rewrite it later. Janice says, what about asking? Oh, cheesies, maybe? Janice says, what about asking a question regarding how often they turn to new recipes, or do they stick to recipes they know they enjoy? Yeah, that's a good question. We always want to know if people, how much they are kind of creatures of habit. So back in the recipes, this would be a follow-up for recipes, because if they say, no, I never use recipes, then, then we have to find out, where do they get this from? So I guess a good question is, if not, how do you come up with the meals that you make? Follow-up for recipes could be, do you tend to make the same recipe over and over? Now, I'm not going to put an or there because I don't want to give them a false choice. Somebody could make a recipe over and over and try new recipes frequently as well. So I'm going to ask those as separate questions. Though, again, this would need a few more passes to improve. Maybe how often do you try new recipes? Because again, if they find a good recipe and they just make it forever and ever, then they might not subscribe to our fake app or website because, hey, I found 3 great recipes. I'm done. That's it. That's my year. Kayleen says, please ignore. Okay. Larry says cooks tend to have different cooking goals: gourmet recipe, new recipe, repeat recipe, leftover recipe. Interested to know how often each occur and when. All right. Ooh, wow. Okay. I'm going to put that down in our goals because writing, that sounds like that would end up a lot of questions. So I'm just going to copy and paste what Larry said over into our goals and move the other stuff down. Yeah, thanks, Larry. That's a good one. Niku says, not sure if we discussed this, but how many people would you be cooking for? And there are specific requirements cooking for more than one person. So we would probably find that out in the screener survey, since we might ask them household composition, like, are you cooking for just you? Are you, and it's more not household composition, it's really how many people, ooh, my typing is extra bad today. How many people are you cooking for? And the reason why my original question was deceptive and not a good question when it said household composition is because, again, just to be selfish, for example, my household is 2 people, me and the famous, wonderful boyfriend everyone knows and loves. And I hit 4,000 subscribers, so you should say hi. And no, with face. But he's a strict vegetarian and I am a super meat eater. So even though I've got a household composition of 2, we cook and eat separately almost every meal. We rarely eat the same thing together because he's strict vegetarian and I am more meat, please. So better question to ask, how many people are you cooking for? Stephanie says, goal, understand what matters to them in a recipe. What makes you say, yeah, I'm going to cook that? Oh, I feel like we had that. Where did I put that? Oh yeah, here it is. How do you know that a recipe is the one you want to try? Okay, so we've got that as a follow-up to, do you use recipes? And that's my kind of decision-making / trust question. We already asked if there are any YouTubers or bloggers they follow, right? Yeah, so if they say they use recipes, we're going to ask them about that. Larry says, yes, that impacts how they shop for ingredients. Yes, poor Pier Mario has to buy me mountains of meat, even though he hates meat. All right, what else can we learn? Let's look back at our notes and see what we're looking to learn. People don't want to buy a lot of weird ingredients that they will use just once a year. They don't want to waste time in super long recipes with stories. They don't want to spend too much money on the meal. I wonder if people have a sense of how much money they're spending per meal. I don't. I really don't. You know, it's so blurry for me, again, speaking selfishly, especially since I have the American style of cooking a mountain of stuff and eating it over multiple days. I have, if I cook 3 pounds of chicken cutlets with a half a jar of tahini, this is the recipe I just made, with a bunch of oil, with 1 giant bell pepper. I don't remember what those cost. So I guess another question is how, and maybe this isn't the right question, but like, how closely are people paying attention to their food budget? We all say we don't want to spend a lot on meals, but how many of us are really keeping track? How many of us are in the supermarket saying, no, I'm going to get the $3 chicken instead of the $4 chicken? Or how many of us are totaling everything up and saying, oh, this is what my meal cost me today? I've done that before as an experiment, but I don't do it regularly. So maybe we need to figure out how much people are paying attention to the cost of ingredients or meals. So I'm going to put that down as a goal. I don't have a great question yet, but again, this is Think Out Loud, so you're just watching the sausage being made today. How closely they pay attention to the prices of ingredients and ultimately each meal or portion. Lee says, I would suspect any favorite recipes would have been influenced by exposure to cooking in childhood. Do you think there's any value in pursuing an avenue of inquiry around contextual or historical decision making, or keep it focused on the first person? Lee, interesting question. I gotta tell you, again, I'm speaking selfishly today because I do, I cook every meal I eat. So I feel like I'm not the user, but I'm going to speak selfishly today because I'm such an edge case here as someone who cooks every meal myself. Growing up, my biological parents were absolutely terrible cooks. Absolutely terrible cooks. If it didn't come in a box with just add water, my biological mother was pretty bad at it. My biological father made a lovely hamburger, and that's about it. So I would have to say that when I think about some of the recipes I make time and time again, I don't think they're influenced by childhood. They're almost anti-childhood, especially since I'm now eating a lot of the foods I wasn't allowed to eat growing up, like peanut butter. I wasn't allowed to eat peanut butter growing up, y'all. Now I'm like, peanut butter, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, Lee, the short answer to the question, now that I've told the story, would probably be I don't think I'm necessarily going to go digging into people's childhoods. I'm going to focus a little bit more on their current behaviors, especially since behaviors might change due to the pandemic, the job they have, the household composition, and other stuff. Steph says, my mom does because she's on a budget, as in, I can spend X euros a week and I need to make the most of it. It's the case of a lot of people, but more like a shopping budget. Yeah, that could be true. People may or may not end up doing the math on the meal, but they might go to the supermarket and say, okay, look, I go to the supermarket once a week and I can spend 80 euros, $100. 200 for the family, whatever it is. So, yeah, it's probably a little bit more of the shopping budget rather than, oh no, I just ate this meal, what did it cost me? Kayleen says, subtract ingredient mass from package mass and then calculate proportion to price to the receipt. No thanks. Janice says, not allowed to eat peanut butter. How come? I'm not sure I even remember at this point. I don't remember. We weren't allowed to eat sugary cereals. We weren't allowed to eat peanut butter and jelly. We weren't allowed to have fruit punch. These were all foods my biological mother was convinced made people stupid. I recognize that might be a bit of a way out perception. I'm not agreeing with her. There's a lot I don't like about her. Hence me calling her biological mother and not the woman so dear to my heart. But of her terrible qualities, food perception is low on the list. She had many more terrible qualities. So, yeah, there was a lot that we couldn't eat growing up. And then later on, it was like, what? This is awesome. What? So, all right, I think we're getting somewhere here. We've got another 20 minutes, so we can dig in a little bit more if we would like. What other questions could we ask? Now, thinking out loud, here's a time where I go back and look at my goals, and I see if I've started to have questions or tasks around my goals. Am I asking the questions that will satisfy, meet, or exceed these goals? Am I going to get the information I want, or am I accidentally going to end up down a rabbit hole? I think a common mistake in research planning is asking people things you're interested in, like, did you love cooking as a child, versus things that might actually affect the project, whether that's strategies, decisions, design. So we want to make sure that we're asking super quality questions that are going to give us the information we need for strategy, prioritization, design, and things like that. Because remember, that's what's coming after the research. And if you've watched our micro lessons with Larry, you know that's what's coming. So we have to set those things up for success. Larry says, sorry to interrupt with an off-topic question. Is anybody noticing glitches with the broadcast? Oh, really? Am I redlining today? Oh, it looks like my microphone's a little hot. Oh, hold on. My stream is blipping. I'm seeing it too. Oh, and you're seeing it too. Hi, this is my system. So see the way stream is blinking yellow? That means my stream is weak. I am not too sure what to do with that midstream. It's stopping a bit. I don't have a great way to turn down my own bandwidth once my stream is in flight. And I don't want to run the risk of changing. My internet looks okay. Upload's really strong. So I wonder why this is. Sorry, everybody. Sorry this has taken a turn and might have to end early. Check your encoder settings. Keyframe interval. Too late now. I'm live. Looks like Restream is unhappy. Ooh. All right, well, looks like Restream is unhappy, and it looks like I am blipping a lot, and I cannot control it. So I think we're just gonna wind down the stream super fast. We got pretty far. I will publish this to the interwebs, so you can find it online if you'd like. Steph, how was that? Should I continue it? I don't think we have to continue it next week. It's probably good enough. Steph, what do you think? I might have to ask that by typing. There's no robotic noise. So, sorry about this, everybody. I am not too sure what's causing this, but I will look into it and hopefully have it fixed for tomorrow's stream. But I will definitely wind down for now. Tomorrow is office hours, Ask Me Anything, and we have a special guest. So I hope you will come back and join me then. Sorry to end this one early. Larry says keep going. I can see my stream is a mess. I don't know why you would want me to keep going. View status. Video input, too full or near full. Frame dropped. Good God, why? I'll put in a support ticket also. Anyway, we know that sometimes people have a student exercise like this, and hopefully this helps you. I am going to wind down and try to troubleshoot my setup here. Thanks to everybody for your patience. Thanks to Steph for sending in something great. And we are going to do a fresh one next week. This one, the one for next week, has to do with learning a foreign language. Now, I know you're thinking, didn't we just do that a few weeks ago? We did, but this one is different. This one is about learning a foreign language when you are trying to find a partner to practice conversing with.